Is something slowly being revealed behind Jungkook and Taehyung's changing attitudes? And why does HYBE look more nervous than ever? Could one silent glance be hiding a truth that's about to explode? What if everything you thought you knew was only the surface? What if a single look, a quiet pause, or a carefully chosen word was actually screaming a secret the world isn't ready to hear? Before you read any further, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because what you're about to dive into isn't just a story. It's a mystery that's been unfolding in front of our eyes, and your voice might be the key to decoding it. So tell us in the comments what you feel, what you suspect, and what you fear is coming next. It started with a feeling. Not a headline, not a statement, not even a scandal, but a feeling that something was different. Jungkook and Taehyung, two figures who once moved like perfectly matched shadows, suddenly began to carry an air that felt heavier, quieter, and strangely loaded with meaning. Fans around the world began to notice it at the same time, almost like a collective instinct. Was it the way Jungkook paused before speaking? Was it the way Taehyung's smile didn't quite reach his eyes anymore? Or was it something deeper, something hidden behind layers of professionalism and forced calm? People began to ask questions, but no one had answers. Every appearance, every performance, every interview started to feel like a puzzle piece. Nothing looked broken, but nothing felt whole either. And then came the whispers. HYBE looked uneasy. Not officially, not in words, but in energy, in silence, in the way statements became carefully vague, in the way schedules shifted without clear reasons, in the way fans were asked to wait patiently more than ever before. Why would patience suddenly become so important? Some said it was just exhaustion. Others said it was change. But deep inside, many fans felt it was something else. Something slowly being revealed, not through confessions, but through behavior. Jungkook, once so open with laughter and playful honesty, began to speak with more distance, as if measuring every word before letting it escape. Taehyung, known for his emotional transparency, sometimes looked like he was holding back a storm behind calm eyes. Why would two people who once felt so free suddenly feel so restrained? At one event, cameras caught Jungkook staring off into the distance during a moment that should have been joyful. The clip went viral not because of what he did, but because of what he didn't do. He didn't smile. He didn't react. He simply existed in a quiet stillness that felt loud. Fans replayed the video again and again, searching for meaning in every blink, every breath. Was he tired? Or was he thinking about something he couldn't say? Not long after, Taehyung appeared in a different setting, smiling for cameras, but then, in an unguarded second, letting his expression fall into something raw and unfiltered. It lasted only a heartbeat, but that heartbeat shook the fandom. What was in that look? Sadness? Frustration? Fear? Or determination? Why would a man known for turning emotions into art suddenly look like he was trying to hide his own? And then people began to connect the dots. Jungkook and Taehyung were no longer always seen interacting the way they once did in public moments. They were still together, still part of the same world, but something about their energy felt cautious. Not distant, not cold, but careful. Like two people walking through a room full of invisible traps. Was it about them? Or was it about something bigger, something around them? That's when HYBE entered the story. Not as a villain, not as a hero, but as a silent presence that felt increasingly tense. There were no dramatic announcements, no explosive scandals, but fans noticed the changes. Projects were teased and then delayed. Statements were released but said almost nothing. Smiles and official content felt practiced, almost too perfect. Why did everything suddenly feel like it was being tightly controlled? Some fans began to wonder if Jungkook and Taehyung were slowly trying to say something without saying it. A lyric here, a look there, a choice of words that felt slightly off from what was expected. Could they be sending messages through art, through silence, through subtle rebellion? And if they were, who were they trying to speak to? The fans, each other, or themselves? Every time Jungkook spoke about dreams, he seemed to emphasize freedom more than ever before. Not just creative freedom, but emotional freedom. He talked about wanting to be honest with himself, about wanting to grow without fear. Those words sounded beautiful, but why did they also sound like they were coming from someone who felt trapped? Taehyung, in his own way, began to express more complexity. His art became deeper, darker, more introspective. He spoke about loneliness even when surrounded by people. He talked about masks, not literal ones, but emotional masks. Why would someone so love talk about hiding? Fans started to feel like they were watching a story unfold in slow motion. Not a sudden explosion, but a long, quiet build-up. Like thunder that hasn't struck yet, but you can hear it rolling in the distance. And every time HYBE released a neutral statement or avoided addressing obvious fan concerns, the tension only grew stronger. What were they afraid of? And why did their silence feel louder than words? Some believed HYBE was simply trying to protect its artists. Others believed it was trying to protect its image. But what if those two goals were starting to conflict? What if Jungkook and Taehyung were growing into people who wanted something different from what the system around them expected? There was a moment during a performance when Jungkook and Taehyung locked eyes in a way that didn't look rehearsed. It wasn't playful. It wasn't dramatic. It was serious. Almost heavy. Fans who saw it live said it felt like watching two people silently promise something to each other. But what promise? To stay strong? To endure? Or to eventually break free? After that, fans noticed small changes in how they spoke about the future. Jungkook talked about uncertainty not as something scary, but as something honest. Taehyung talked about change not as something to fear, but as something inevitable. Why did both of them suddenly sound like people standing at the edge of something unknown? Rumors grew, but the truth remained quiet. Some said they were unhappy. Others said they were simply evolving. But everyone agreed on one thing. Something was happening, even if no one could name it yet. And HYBE, instead of clearing the air, seemed to be holding it tighter, like someone trying to keep water from slipping through their fingers. The more HYBE tried to look calm, the more fans felt uneasy. Calm can be comforting, but it can also be suspicious. Why was there no direct answer to the questions everyone was asking? Why were fans being told to trust, but not being told what they were trusting? Jungkook once said that silence can sometimes say more than words. And lately, silence has been everywhere. Silence from the company. Silence in certain moments between members. Silence in answers that should have been clear. Could this silence be the real story? Taehyung once said that emotions don't disappear just because you hide them. They grow. They change shape. They find new ways to exist. If that's true, then what emotions are growing behind the scenes right now? Fans feel like they're standing in front of a locked door, hearing sounds from the other side but not being allowed to open it. Every smile feels like a clue. Every pause feels like a question mark. Every delayed announcement feels like a warning sign. But of what? Some fans believe Jungkook and Taehyung are preparing for something big, something that will change not just their careers, but how they are seen as individuals. Others believe they are simply trying to survive a system that no longer fits who they are becoming. And some believe HYBE is afraid not of scandal, but of change, because change means losing control. What if the truth isn't dramatic, but emotional? What if it's about growth that hurts, about dreams that no longer match old plans, about people who have outgrown the roles they were once given? What if HYBE isn't afraid of rumors, but of reality? Jungkook's eyes lately seem to carry both hope and exhaustion. Taehyung's voice carries both beauty and weight. Together, they feel like two people walking the same path, but questioning where it leads. Are they walking toward freedom, or toward conflict? Fans are torn between excitement and fear. They want their idols to be happy, but they're scared of what happiness might cost. They want honesty, but they're afraid of what honesty might reveal. And HYBE seems to be standing between these desires like a wall, strong, quiet, and possibly cracking.